Welcome into another digital edition of Daily Wager. I'm Doug Kezirian alongside Preston Johnson and Anita Marks as we continue our tour around the NFL. Today, the NFC North. Let's start with the Packers. Won the division last year, 13 wins. The win total was 8.5, got bet up to 9, but it's juiced to the under here. Rest of the odds, 16-1 to win the Super Bowl, and the yes-no is minus 140 to the yes. Preston, you're expecting a downturn here from the Pack.
I do. They're a prime candidate for regression. When you look at some of the metrics from last season. Now at 8.5, I thought it was a sharp open. I'm also not surprised people say 8.5, 13-win team, Aaron Rodgers, and bet this up to 9. But I think there's value now under. Look, they were a plus 63. Their point differential, which relative to a 13-win team is not standard. You look even in their own division, the Vikings were plus 104, only won 10 games, and they did it against a tougher schedule. They were 9-1 in one-score games. I know it's Aaron Rodgers. He's going to win you more games late than not. But a 90% win rate in one-score games is just not sustainable. They benefited from some turnover luck. And I don't think they did enough acquisition-wise in the offseason. They added Funchess. I guess he might be a positive impact, but he was a 69th graded receiver in PFF last season. It's just nothing that moves the needle enough for me to say this is a double-digit win team. I like under at 9 now.
Anita, you're on the opposite side, expecting double-digit wins again.
I am. And the big reason is because of Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he just wins football games. He's got the best QB efficiency in the history of the NFL. You mentioned LaFleur. Last year was his rookie year. This is his second year. So now they've had an opportunity to gel. The one thing about Aaron Rodgers that I love is that his entire career, it's always been pass first, run second. And LaFleur is changing that up. They're becoming a run first team, which is going to open up things for Aaron Rodgers. So I actually, even at 9, I'm not scared. If you're scared, say you're scared. I'm not scared. I like the over.
All right, fair enough. So you guys are split. I like my favorite play here on this team is the Rodgers passing yards under 3,900 yards. Anita, you just touched on it in terms of Matt LaFleur wanting to run the ball a lot more. And Rodgers, he's awesome. He's a stud, but he's going to turn 37 this year. Last year, ranked 16th in terms of percentage of throws on target. There's some aggression here. I like under, and he just snuck over last year. Everything went right, so I'll take the under this coming season. Elsewhere in the division, the Vikings, like the Packers, have a win total of 9. The yes-no, the yes is minus 125. And the Vikes are actually the favorites here in the division, slightly plus 170. And guys, one of my favorite bets out there is the Vikings to go to the playoffs, yes, minus a quarter. First things first, extra playoff team this year, so 3 wildcard teams. I just like the Vikes. I actually think they're going to win the division, but I'll lay the minus 125. They're stacked on defense. They have Dalvin Cook on offense. Yes, they lose Diggs, but I think they're going to be okay, particularly because I think Kirk Cousins is going to benefit from no crowds, no fans. I think it's well documented how much he has struggled in primetime on the road. I actually think it's a crazy narrative, but I think he'll be okay there. And I actually like him at 50-1 to win the MVP because the Vikes have a chance to be that 1 or 2 seed, and a quarterback could put up big numbers. We saw this team ceiling last year, going on the road in the playoffs, winning at New Orleans. I'm expecting big things from the Vikes this year. What about you, Preston?
I'm the same. I love the playoff bet. I love the plus 170 for the division, even the over 9 wins. I project them to be favored in 11 games, and especially the NFC at 13-1. Just look relative to the Green Bay Packers, who I already mentioned. I thought Minnesota, the underlying metrics pointed to them being the better team last year. They play an easier schedule than Green Bay. Green Bay's 7.5-1 to win the NFC. The Vikings are 13-1. When you look at the division odds, the Vikings are the favorites. That's just the premium you're paying to bet Green Bay, especially in Las Vegas. I like Minnesota. They drafted 15 guys in the draft. They had 15 picks to add. Justin Jefferson, I think, can take place of what Diggs was doing at receiver. I think he's going to be elite. And they're in a great spot. They're this kind of unreasonably unsexy team that's really, really good every year. And at this price, I love them. I like Minnesota over division, playoffs, like you said, everything.
Yeah, definitely unsexy. I like that word choice. They did lose their offensive coordinator, now the Browns head coach. Anita, what stands out for you?
The team might be unsexy, but Dalvin Cook is extremely sexy. 300 touches. All right. And playing 14 games last year. If he can play 16 games this season, dude could rush for over 1,200 yards. He is the bell cow. It begins and ends. He is the straw that stirs the drink. Yes, Reggie Jackson, I just stole your line. And believe it or not, as Preston talked about just a second ago, their opponents in regard to defense, not only is it very favorable for them, but extremely favorable against rushing defenses this year. So I love the over in rushing yards for Cook.
And now to the team that won the division 2 years ago, certainly regressed last year with Mitchell Trubisky at QB. 8 is your win total, minus 175 to miss the postseason. And a lot of hype last year for this team. And Trubisky, remember all those MVP tickets? Not so much this year. 50-1 to win it all. Preston. Seems like about a 500 team to me, and I don't even know who's starting at quarterback because they brought in Nick Foles. What about you?
It's a look. First and foremost, my numbers, I project the Bears to win 7.2 games on average. So looking at 8, it looks like there's some value under. They're only even favored in 5 games. So the schedule's a little bit tougher overall compared to the rest of the division. And you mentioned Trubisky Foles. That whole dynamic, it's just super awkward, especially after an offseason like this one. I don't know what to expect. They haven't really put a ton of guys and weapons around either quarterback either way that's going to help. And then ultimately for me, it's the defense. 2 years ago, number 1 in DVOA, number 2 in opponent yards per play. Vic Fangio, who was the defensive coordinator, leaves to Denver. They dropped to 8th in both metrics last season. Now, that's still above average, but it's not elite where you need to be with an offense like last year's, who, by the way, was 4.7 yards per play on offense, the second worst in the NFL behind only the Jets, right, or in front of only the Jets. So for me, I mean, they're not going to get to 9 wins, plus enough for me to bet anything but under here.
And let's now round out the division with the team that's often in last place, the Detroit Lions. 6.5 your win total, juice to the over. Yes, no minus 400 to reach the postseason. Other futures plus 750 to win the division. Something they have not done since the Barry Sanders days, 1993, 60-1 to win it all. Anita, you're up first. What do you got?
Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite bets in this division. And I like the over here. I think because this is a team that only won 3 games last year, the over-under heading into this season is pretty low. Matt Patricia and Matthew Stafford have a lot to prove this season. Arguably one of the best wide receiving cores. I like what they did in the draft, bringing in Swift. Swift, that running back, is going to be a big part of the passing offense. I like they improved the defense as well, not only in free agency, but in the draft. So I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Detroit Lions. I love the over here, and their schedule pretty favorable, Doug.
Preston, what number stands out for the Lions to you?
The main offering, season win totals, division prices, Super Bowl, they actually all line up for me, but there's a prop that intrigues me, and it's most passing yards for Matthew Stafford, 14-1. He quietly had one of the best half seasons in the NFL last year, midway through 8 games. He was second in the NFL amongst quarterbacks in fantasy points scored behind just Lamar Jackson. He had thrown for 2,500 yards through 8 games. They brought in offensive coordinator Darrell Bevel to take over. 14-1, right? So you get a healthy Stafford season when it's all said and done in the vicinity of playing the 5th easiest schedule. They have a defense that projects to be bottom 5 again, so they're going to be chasing in fourth quarters. Jameis Winston, who threw for 5,100 last year, if you extrapolate out to Stafford 5,000 yards, he's not even a starter anymore in the league. So I think Dak will be up in the mix, but so will Stafford. 14-1, the price is just too good.
If I could take over on backdoor covers for Stafford, I certainly would.
Yes.
That's not offered, but Kenny Golladay, 9.5 receiving touchdowns is, look, it's a big number. I just have to at least lean to the under there. Even though he had 11 last year, double-digit receiving touchdowns. We've talked about in the past in terms of how kind of random it gets, especially around the goal line. Yes, I do expect it to be trailing in a lot of the second halves this coming season, but I still have to take under with Golladay. All right, that's going to do it for the NFC North. Just a reminder, tons of this type of content on ESPN.com's Chalk section. A few interesting articles as we go down memory lane here. 5 best NFL franchises to bet on during the Super Bowl era. Also the worst betting seasons of the Super Bowl era. And we got some NASCAR race best bets for Wednesday night, the race in Charlotte. That's going to do it for us, guys. And we got AFC North coming out on Thursday.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.